over the years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pushed for the idea of simultaneous Lok Sabha and State Assembly polls.
One nation, one election सिर्फ एक चर्चा का विषय नहीं है, बल्कि ये भारत की जरूरत है.
However, many opposition parties have been against the idea in the past. So, what is one nation, one election? One nation, one election means that simultaneous elections will be held across the country, elections for Lok Sabha and all state assemblies at the same time. Presently, they are held separately. What are the pros and cons of one nation, one election? Those supporting one nation, one election say that it would reduce the cost of holding elections. In 2017, a discussion paper titled Analysis of Simultaneous Elections, the What, Why and How, Bibek Deb Roy and Kishore Desai of Niti Aayog pointed out that the general elections of 2009 had cost the exchequer about 1,115 crore rupees and the 2014 elections about 3,870 crore rupees. The total expenses, including spending by the parties and candidates, would be several times more. Another advantage on one nation, one election is that it would limit all elections to a single season. Now, at present, elections happen somewhere or the other almost all the time, and it is often argued that the model code of conduct gets in the way of the government announcing projects or policy plans for the benefit of the people. On the other hand, critics argue that holding just one mega election would be too complex, an exercise to tackle in a country as large and as complex as India. It would be a logistical nightmare, requiring, for example, about twice as many electronic voting machines and voter verifiable paper audit trail machines as are used now. Now, there is also the view that simultaneous elections would benefit the party that is nationally dominant at the cost of smaller regional players. In other words, the BJP would get an unfair advantage. Also, what happens if any government collapses before completing its term? Assembly polls in India are due in 5 states, Meghalaya, Madhya Pradesh, Telangana, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan in November-December of 2023, followed by the Lok Sabha elections in May-June next year. Now, let's dive into a little bit of the history. When elections were first held in independent India, we started out with simultaneous elections. However, there were a series of political changes in different states that changed this cycle. Lok Sabha and state legislatures went to polls together in 1952 and in 1957. And this is when the cycle was first broken. In Kerala in July 1959, when the government of Jawaharlal Nehru used Article 356 of the Constitution to dismiss the government of the communist EMS Namboodiripad, EMS had become Chief Minister after the elections of April 1957 and Kerala voted for a new 5-year assembly again in February 1960. In the 1967 elections, the Congress suffered setbacks in 8 states and governments of the Sanyukta Vidhayak Dal comprising the Bharatiya Kranti Dal, Sanyukt Socialist Party, Praja Socialist Party, Swatantra Party, Bharatiya Janasangh and defectors from the Congress were formed. Now, the governments were unstable, there were rampant defections and many of these assemblies were dissolved before their terms were over, resulting in the separation of the election cycles of many states from that of the Lok Sabha. At present, assembly elections in only Andhra Pradesh, Odisha, Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim are held together with the Lok Sabha elections. Now, you would ask, has the idea of simultaneous polls been explored before? Now, in 1983, the Election Commission had suggested that such a system could work out. The Law Commission, headed by Justice B.P. Jeevan Reddy, in its 170th report in May 1999, stated, quote-unquote, we must go back to the situation where the elections to Lok Sabha and all the legislative assemblies are held at once. In 2003, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee took up the matter with Congress President Sonia Gandhi, who was receptive to begin with, but the idea did not take off from there. In 2010, L.K. Advani discussed the matter with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and wrote in his blog, a mini general election every alternate year was not good for the health either of our central and state governments or of our polity. So, how have matters moved on? One nation, one election after the NDA came to power. In 2015, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Personnel, Public Grievances, Law and Justice prepared a report on the feasibility of holding simultaneous elections to House of People and state legislative assemblies. The report said that simultaneous elections would help to reduce, number one, the massive expenditure that is currently incurred for the conduct of separate elections. Number two, the policy paralysis that results from the imposition of the Model Code of Conduct during election time. Number three, the impact on the delivery of essential services. And number four, the burden on crucial manpower that is deployed during election time. The Congress opposed the idea as impractical and unworkable. The Trinamool Congress said it was anti-democratic and unconstitutional. The CPI and the NCP said that it was not feasible. The CPIM pointed towards practical problems.